Every politician in Nigeria is talking about 2027. But here's what nobody is asking. If all 6 geopolitical zones have already declared support for Tinubu's re-election, and the APC congresses are happening right now across the country, why does it feel less like a political process and more like a coronation? Think about that. In a democracy, congresses are supposed to be the place where the party base speaks. But when the outcomes are announced before the votes are even cast, when zone after zone falls in line like clockwork, you have to ask, who is actually running this machine? And what happens to the people inside the APC who don't agree? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what's being built, who's driving it, and what it means for 2027 and for Nigerian democracy itself. Before we go deeper, if you're just finding Niger Newsfeed, welcome. This channel exists to break down what's really happening in Nigerian politics without the noise, without the spin. Hit subscribe and stay with me, because this one gets interesting. So let's start from the beginning. What exactly happened? The APC, the All Progressives Congress, Nigeria's ruling party, recently began a series of congresses across all 36 states and the FCT. These are internal party exercises, ward congresses, local government congresses, state congresses. The purpose, officially, is to elect party officers from the grassroots up to renew party structures ahead of the 2027 general election cycle. What made this round of congresses significant is what accompanied them. As each geopolitical zone held its congress, prominent governors, senators, and party stakeholders from that zone publicly declared their support for President Bola Tinubu's second-term bid. Not one zone, not 2, all 6, Northwest, Northeast, North Central, Southwest, Southeast, South-South, zoned by zone, the declarations came in, almost like a coordinated rollout. Now here's what you need to understand about timing. This is happening in the first half of Tinubu's first term. The election is in 2027. Normally, formal declarations of support at this scale this early would come later, closer to primary season. The fact that it's happening now, wrapped inside a party congress process, tells you something about the strategy at play. The trigger? A combination of pressure from within the party, particularly from governors who want clarity about the 2027 presidential ticket, and a deliberate move from the Aso Rock political office to lock in the landscape before any credible challenger can organize. Let's talk about the structure, because you can't understand the politics without understanding the rules. The APC is governed by its constitution. Under that constitution, party congresses are supposed to be democratic exercises, grassroots elections that give ordinary party members a say in who runs the structures. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has a supervisory role in monitoring internal party democracy, though its enforcement powers are limited. Here's where it gets interesting. Nigeria's 1999 constitution, as amended, doesn't give INEC the power to nullify a party's internal elections unless they violate specific Electoral Act provisions. This creates a significant gray area. A party can effectively conduct congresses that look procedurally correct on paper, proper forms filed, names submitted, while the actual selection of delegates and officers happens behind closed doors. This is not new to Nigerian politics. It has a name: agreement congresses. Everyone agrees who wins before the congress takes place. The congress itself becomes a ratification exercise, not an election. Now, the zonal declarations of support for Tinubu add another institutional layer. Under the APC's presidential primary process, delegates, including governors, senators, House of Representatives members, and state party officials, are the ones who will vote in the presidential primary. By having these figures publicly commit to Tinubu now, during the Congress season, the party is essentially predetermining the outcome of a primary that hasn't even been scheduled. The gray area being exploited here is simple. There is no law against a politician declaring support early, but when the declarations come packaged with Congress outcomes, the institutional signal is unmistakable. The party machinery is being aligned in one direction, and it's happening before the general public even starts paying attention.
Here's where it gets strategic, and honestly, a little bit impressive, depending on how you look at it. Let's break down who benefits and how. The Tinubu camp. The primary beneficiary is obvious, President Tinubu. But let's not just stop at the surface. A re-election campaign in Nigeria doesn't start on the day you declare. It starts the moment you control the party machinery. By using the Congress season to consolidate support, the Tinubu camp is doing three things simultaneously. 1. They are crowding out alternatives. Any APC governor or senator who might be quietly nursing presidential ambitions is now on record supporting Tinubu. Walking that back publicly in 2026 or early 2027 would be politically costly. It marks you as a turncoat within the party. 2. They are signaling to the PDP and Labour Party that the APC is not fractured. In 2023, the fear within the APC was the Peter Obi movement, a mobilized, angry alternative. By projecting unity now, the APC is trying to preempt that narrative. 3. They are managing the North. This is perhaps the most important dimension. There is a growing sentiment, particularly in the Northwest and Northeast, that Tinubu's first term has not delivered sufficiently on the implicit bargain that underpins the APC coalition: security in the North, economic patronage for Northern governors, and federal appointments. By getting Northern zones on record early, the presidency is creating political obligations that will be difficult to reverse. The governors. Nigeria state governors are the most powerful brokers in Nigerian politics. They control state party structures, influence delegate selection, and manage enormous patronage networks. Why would governors in, say, Kano or Borno or Rivers State align publicly with Tinubu this early? 2 reasons: access and insurance. Access. If you're seen as an early Tinubu supporter and he wins in 2027, you secure your position in the federal patronage network. Federal allocation, ministerial slots, security cooperation. All of these flow more easily to governors who are aligned. Insurance. If you're a governor who has some legal or political exposure, and several APC governors do, being visibly loyal to the president is not just smart politics, it's protective cover. The silent players. I'll come back to one name specifically, someone who's conspicuously absent from these declarations in about 10 minutes. Pay attention to that when we get there. The players worth watching are not always the loudest voices. The national chairman of the APC, the director general of the party's campaign structure when it's set up, and the APC Governors Forum chairman. These figures will determine how the 2027 machinery actually functions. Watch who gets those positions in the aftermath of these congresses. There are also federal contractors, political financiers, and media handlers who don't appear in press releases but who will be central to the 2027 war chest. The connections between the Congress process and these financing structures are not publicly documented, but they are real and they are being cemented right now. The countermoves. Not everyone within the APC is enthusiastic. There are whispers, and this is important, of governors and party elders who complied publicly but are privately signaling that their commitment is conditional. Conditional to what? On whether the second-term agenda addresses northern insecurity, whether the Naira and petrol subsidy removal fallout is managed, and whether Tinubu is perceived as healthy and capable going into 2027. Outside the APC, the PDP and Labour Party are watching this process carefully. For them, APC unity is a problem, but an artificially engineered unity has its own vulnerabilities, which we'll get to. Now, if what I just laid out surprises you, drop a comment below. I want to know your take before we get to the part that changes the whole picture. Here is the thing nobody is saying out loud. The real test of this strategy is not in 2027, it's in the next 12 months. What does all of this mean for Nigeria at the national level? Power balance, federal versus state. The congresses and declarations reinforce a centralization of political power within the Aso Rock political office. When governors align early, they are, functionally, ceding some of their political independence to the center. This has always been a tension in Nigerian federalism, but it is sharpening. For ordinary Nigerians, this matters because it affects how governors prioritize. Do they respond to their state constituents or to federal signals? When those two things are in conflict, and they often are, the governor's calculation shifts.
economic consequences. Congress seasons in Nigeria are expensive. Money flows for logistics, delegate persuasion, hospitality, and the informal patronage that oils political machinery. That money comes from somewhere. Often, it comes from state government resources, through budget lines that are poorly monitored, through contracts awarded to politically connected individuals who then fund the process. This is not unique to APC, but it is worth naming. At a moment when ordinary Nigerians are dealing with high food prices, currency pressure, and rising fuel costs, the spectacle of elaborate political congresses with coordinated declarations carries its own political risk. The narrative of a tone-deaf political class is not difficult for opposition actors to construct. Inter-regional tensions. The declaration from all 6 zones sounds like unity, but listen more carefully to what each zone is actually saying. The Southeast's declaration is notably more hedged than the Southwest's. The Northeast's alignment comes with visible conditions. These nuances matter. Nigeria's geopolitical zones carry real historical, economic, and ethnic weight. When a zone declares, what that actually means at the grassroots level, at the level of the voter in Enugu, in Maiduguri, in Kebbi, is another question entirely.
There is a genuine international dimension here, though it is subtle. Nigeria's major international partners, the United States, the United Kingdom, the World Bank, and the IMF, are not indifferent to who governs Nigeria. Nigeria is the largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa. Its political stability matters for regional security, for energy markets, and for migration patterns that affect Europe. What the international community is watching is not the party Congress itself. They are watching the quality of the democratic process. The Tinubu administration has cultivated relatively good relationships with Western capitals. The IMF and World Bank have broadly endorsed the subsidy removal and foreign exchange liberalization as structural reform. That goodwill is an asset for 2027. It means there will be no significant international pressure campaign against Tinubu's second-term bid, as long as the process looks procedurally credible. For Nigerians in the diaspora, the most important thing to understand is this: the 2027 election will be closely watched. The 2023 election generated enormous diaspora engagement and enormous frustration with INEC and the judiciary. If the APC's Congress season is seen as the opening move of a predetermined outcome, it will energize diaspora opposition voices and potentially increase financial contributions to opposition campaigns from abroad. One global pattern worth noting is the concentration of political power through party machinery before an election cycle is not unique to Nigeria. It's visible in democracies under strain across the world. The question is whether the institutional checks, INEC, the judiciary, civil society, have the independence and capacity to function. In Nigeria, that question remains open. Let me steelman the Tinubu camp's position, because it's actually stronger than critics want to admit. Let's clear some things up. Misconception 1. The congresses are meaningless because the outcomes are predetermined. This is too simple. Yes, agreement congresses happen, but congresses also produce real infrastructure. Party officials who then have to manage ward operations, mobilization logistics, and delegate lists. Even a rigged Congress creates real administrative outputs that matter for 2027 operations. Dismissing them entirely as theater misses the functional political work they are doing. Misconception 2. All 6 zones declaring support means Tinubu is unbeatable. No. In Nigerian politics, declarations at this stage are opening bids, not final commitments. Politicians who declared for Tinubu have also declared for other candidates in the past and changed positions when the calculations shifted. What matters is not who declares now, but who controls the delegate machinery in Q1 2027 when the primary actually happens. The strongest counter-argument from the Tinubu camp.
The president has a right to seek re-election, and early consolidation of support is normal incumbency politics. This is true. Every incumbent president in every democracy builds an early re-election coalition. The Obama campaign started organizing early. So did Macron's. So did Lula's. Using the party machinery you control is not in itself anti-democratic. Where that argument falls apart: when the party machinery is used to suppress internal competition rather than simply organize support, it creates a problem not just for democracy but for the APC itself. A party that never seriously tests its candidate internally is a party that may be blindsided by weaknesses in the general election. History in Nigerian politics is littered with candidates who looked unbeatable in the primary and struggled in the field. Now, that name I mentioned earlier, the figure conspicuously absent or quiet in these declarations. Pay attention to which sitting APC governor or senior figure is not enthusiastically on the record. In Nigerian political history, the quiet ones are often the ones building, slowly, carefully, for later. Watch that space between now and the end.
So, what happens next? Most likely, next moves from the Tinubu camp. The congresses will conclude, and within the next several months, we should expect the formal establishment of a Tinubu APC campaign structure. Probably not officially called a campaign yet, but functionally operating as one. Watch for the appointment of a coordinator or supporter-in-chief role at the national level. Watch also for federal appointments and contract awards that track with political loyalty signals coming out of these congresses. Signals to watch that would confirm escalation. If APC governors start publicly commissioning